I think we'll kick off the webinar now. Just start off by introducing myself. I'm Samuel Dasaoli, and I'm here as an account executive from CluedIn, looking after UK and Ireland. And I'll just be your host for today, running through questions that people might have, introducing the panelists, the presenters, and being able to facilitate most of the proceedings today. I'm sure most people are excited to join today to learn more about the new integration with CluedIn Microsoft Power Platform. And we have Alex from the CluedIn side, which is one of our solutions engineers. He'll be supporting in talking through how that integration actually works and able to actually provide a demonstration today. And then we also have Patrick from Microsoft, which is a senior technical specialist, and he'll be joining us and talking about just an overview of the Power Platform as well, how the use of it within data. Then we'll be able to turn over to Alex, where we'll be able to go in introduction into the CluedIn integration and overview, the challenges that we actually see that being able to solve within some of our early adopter customers and also some of the prospects that we're working with. And then also going through the CluedIn integration. And then we'll wrap up with the summary and the value proposition that we've been able to see, and how it's going to be able to help with businesses, some of the insights that we're already seeing, and ultimately being able to automate, streamline some of these processes within organization to help them get to insights faster than ever before. So it's going to be quite exciting. I know a lot of people are ready to go. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Patrick to be able to get us started. Patrick.
Thank you. Okay, so the first 10 or 12 minutes of this presentation is really just to give an understanding about the Power Platform and what it can do for you. And then the second part will be where Alexander kind of digs in and combines the CluedIn with the Power Apps. I think one thing that you notice in the industry when it comes to these kind of low-code platforms, which the Power Platform is that there's just a huge demand, and Microsoft has basically built a platform of tools to help meet this demand of having a lack of the number of apps and the amount of automation and digitation that is going on in the industry at the current moment. And that just because there isn't enough resources and there's not enough talent out there to do this, it must be that this need for being able to build apps and automation must be pushed down into lower levels of the organization, where citizen developers or people below the IT department can participate in help building applications and snippets of automation that could help streamline the organization. In the Microsoft world, we have the Power Platform, which is really just a toolbox. Let me move my face again. Is really just a toolbox of different components. And you can consider this like buying a set of Lego bricks, where you have a recipe to build a Lego toy, and then in each of these areas is a different set of tools that you can use to help digitalize the organization that you're in. And then on top of that, as part of this toolbox that you have the ability to use data connectors, data platforms, and AI tools as part of this whole solution toolbox that you have to build these different types of applications and automations that you have. And I'm going to walk through a couple of these just to give you an idea about how organizations are using this today, and then walk through a little bit of the scenario that we'll see and how it ties together with the Power Platform. First of all, in Microsoft's world, we build everything on top of Azure. So the Power Platform is actually something that sits on top of Azure. It uses the same identity and security and compliance that Microsoft has in all of its tools. Is something that is actually a part of the Power Platform. So when we speak about the Power Platform, it's not something that Microsoft has purchased somewhere else and tried to add to. It's something that Microsoft has built itself, which basically encompasses everything that Microsoft has to offer. On top of that, it has actually, the ability to interconnect through these connectors into the entire Microsoft Office 365 platform. So a lot of the automation that we'll talk about today has to do with using Teams, but any of the tools that you have as part of your your Microsoft 365 can be used with the Power Platform, whether it's to build apps on top of or whether it's to use automation. And then Microsoft has a whole line of business applications that can be used also. So you can basically intertwine the usage of the different applications from Azure to Power Platform to the different Microsoft 365 and Dynamics 365. So it's really a powerful set of tools that are kind of interlocking and interweaving the different components and tool sets that Microsoft already offers. So if you want to continue to use the investments that you have in Microsoft 365, one way to do that is to kind of set power to the Power Platform in the back end and start using the automation that is available in the tool set, or adding applications on top of it. So we see this as a digital toolbox, and I'm going to talk first about some of the connectors and then a little bit about why this is important. So it's one thing that we have on top of Microsoft 365 or Dynamics or other tools that you can go in and build automation, or that you can build mobile or tablet applications, or that you can actually build virtual agents. But the real power is that Microsoft offers 1,000 connectors to connect to these different data sources. So if you would like to build a automation snippet that works on CluedIn and Teams, sends an email, uses other third-party connectors that are available, you can basically mix and match the different types of connectors into the automation that you build or the apps that you build. And that's a little bit of what we'll see today. The benefit also here is if you're missing a connector, so you don't see a connector in the list, you can actually create your own connector. So if you have some data somewhere on premise, or you don't see a connector that is available, the system also allows you to actually build your own connectors. You can add them to the connector pool that's publicly made, but you can have your own set of private connectors. And once you set these connectors up, or you kind of grab these connectors, then you can use them intertwined in the different applications that you're building. On top of that, or the starting point, is that a lot of companies, they build mobile applications. So on the left-hand side, we're really looking at for example, a tablet application built on some type of data source, or a mobile application built on some type of data source. You can basically mix and match these. What we see a lot of companies also do is the ability to take data from Excel. And Excel is really a wonderful tool, but it lacks a lot of security and compliance for a row level, cell level. You can't see who's editing in rows and cells and stuff. And the Power Platform allows you to actually build, import this data, set up the fields that you have in Excel, and kind of with that data model, get a better overview and understanding around the data you're using in Excel by pushing it into a data model, and then having kind of like forms over data, but where you can track from a compliance point of view who owns, who edits, who modifies, who deletes data and stuff like that. So you can basically build an array of applications in the Power Platform, and they can be all kind of intertwined with each other. Then there's the whole process automation, and this is a large part of what we're going to see in the demo, but it's a toolbox in itself. It actually offers RPA on the one end, could we say, and offers process mining on the other end, and then in the middle allows you to create automation snippets that you can use the connectors to kind of drive automation in all kinds of different direction. And then it offers a user interface like you see here to the right, which allows you to kind of build the levels of automation that you would like to have across these different systems. And then, of course, you can trigger in a wide range of ways. You can manually trigger it, or you can let systems trigger it through automation. So if you change a field or add a field or delete some data, that you can create this automation basically to trigger itself. And then there's this idea about building Power Virtual Agents, or having agents, and this has become really popular, but the system allows you basically to, through graphical interface, design a set of virtual agents that can basically be provisioned externally or internally, use all the connectors that we spoke about, but try to help individuals that are using these agents, whether it's internally or externally, get the information that they need from these different systems, and then be able to build a wide range of conversation trees and let the bot kind of do its work. And then on top of it, it allows you to provision it in lots of places, and it has a whole set of monitoring, performance and monitoring tools built into the system. This is also part of the Power Platform. And the last one is that I'll mention here is Power Pages. So instead of building an entire website from here, you can basically design individual pages or partial websites. And what we see a lot of companies do is they'll embed these pages inside of their existing website. So if you would like to have a form that submits data directly to your data source, you can actually create a form in Power Pages that has this live connection to your backend. Really easily spin up a form and allow people to submit data. It also has, for example, login built into it. So if you want to build a partner portal or a customer portal that is using data from the backend that you're provisioning to the user, then you can use Power Pages to do this. It's got a really slick drag and drop designer on it, and it basically can use the cascading style sheets or whatever the styles is that you're using as part of the Power Pages. So this is really the toolbox that Microsoft offers and a really high level for everything that is available in the Power Platform. And as you've seen already, if you just look at the process in the Power Automation part, there is a huge toolbox that you can do attended and untended process automation, process mining, snippets of automation. So each of the areas in itself allows you with a deep range of technology. In the example that we'll see today, we'll basically see when he speaks the different parts that we're talking about is we'll see a little bit, and I don't think he'll go in the detail of each one, but we'll see Power Pages on form submit, and then there's some actions will happen with CluedIn and the Azure AI, Open AI integration that is happening that's not in the Power Platform. But then we'll see that Power Automate will trigger an approval flow. So you can basically have a multi-person approval flow that is triggered through the Power Automate. And then we'll use Teams as this kind of approval front end. So you'll see that they'll push into the Teams the ability to ask for this approval and kind of let users run this approval flow. And once the approval takes place, then some more information is needed. And I just put, you can use a Power App for this, but you can also use, there's multiple tools inside of the platform that would allow a user to update information, whether you're using a mobile app, tablet app, whether you're using another Power Page form, or if you're just triggering this information in Teams on cards. So there's a wide range of tools that you can use to make the process that we're looking at as streamlined as possible. So instead of people having to find their way to different places to fulfill this flow, you're basically feeding them what they need to do in the tool that is most relevant for that user. And then the last one is that we'll go back to Power Automate to complete the approval flow. That will maybe send some notifications into the person who is the data steward, could update data in their CRM system, in other systems. So you can basically use the system with the connectors to kind of trigger automation, fulfill information, and push it back and forth between the systems. I'll hand it over to Alexander in a second. To my last slide is if you're interested to know more about the Power Platform or connect on LinkedIn, you can basically find me here. Alexander, it's all you.
Yes, thanks, Patrick, very much. I'm gonna now share my screen as well. So as we have been speaking about the Power Apps and the CluedIn integration. So what does the CluedIn and Power Apps actually integration bring you as a value? So that's now the biggest question. So from per standpoint of the CluedIn and people who were, for example, using the CluedIn as a MDM tool or for your single point of truth setup, a place where business can rely upon, and it will not only bring correct and updated information about your customer, but also can give you an overall picture you have on your customer across all your departments and systems. This is especially true if you have acquired multiple companies in your customer siloed all across the business. For example, Power Apps and CluedIn integration will enable you to make your day-to-day business in constant sync with your single point of truth customer without business users ever needing to log into CluedIn in the first place. In the same manner, Power Apps flows bring you the possibility to define enhanced processes around your data governance and master data management team, exactly how your business requires, without really needing to bend the way your teams work just because you had to use some static workflows that was imposed to you. On the other side, another important benefit is that you can use Power Apps, and that's what we also heard from our customers very often, is that we can use Power Apps also to exactly define how will your data from production systems get ingested into the CluedIn, and of course, pending approval or anything else, how you would like to have it exactly done, and do this kind of enrichment, actualization, validation, what you usually do, the duplication that you usually do in CluedIn, and then set up whenever you want, for example, and of course, pending the approval of the data steward, you can send this data back using Power Apps Flow exactly in the way you want to have it, back to the source system's updated records exactly, also down to the each single property that you have. The last part is that all of this is while keeping the business users using the tools they are familiar with, which simplifies so crucial business user adoption of a new technologies enter into your ecosystem. This has been usually a biggest issue of introduction of the new and more efficient approaches to the business, and the end being just simply let there on a shelf and never being used because simply adoption, training, and so on is just simply too high. So aside of these benefits that we just mentioned right now, and keeping in mind what Patrick has just mentioned in his presentation, you can just imagine how many more use cases can you build with such integration of CluedIn and Power Apps together. So I'll just go a little bit more and be redundant with Patrick's, but I'm gonna make the demo use case a bit more described towards how would we see it in a general use case, and that's what many customers have already come up to us. So let's say that we dive into our use case of today's demo and we say, okay, I'm Alexander Kovacevic, for example, I'm working as a customer service for consumer finance institution, and customer applies for a credit card request via phone. I fill in the details, and of course, pending approval of my manager or supervisor, I gonna get this kind of application sent further to the next team. So as the next team gets request, CluedIn has already jumped in and let you know, hey, there is such a customer in our system, and is being used in another system that your company just acquired recently. So financial credit services go on and fill their details, additional details that they need, and of course use the already details that are existing from, for example, the other system. So it brings this efficiency also into how do you actually work with your customer, and brings the customer experience better. And of course, pending approval of the manager in this case, which is something a bit more complex in this case, but you can work the way you want. Now credit risk analyst comes, and along with the previous information about the customer and new information received from financial services and customer service, they get also CluedIn's OpenAI that provides you its own risk assessment about this applicant with the textual reasoning on why it shows this risk assessment. You can just imagine how this kind of step can facilitate and maybe even improve credit risk decisions. It's important to mention here is that it's a Microsoft OpenAI, and we have a deep integration already with an OpenAI as well. And of course, final approval needs to be set so that the record can be then finally put in a production system, and for example, the application granted. And along the way, the new credit is being then approved, and additional details has been then set into the CluedIn record. However, as the new data has been updated throughout the system, this update, or it triggers automatically this Power Apps flow, which would update the data sources, and the new update is being sent to a data steward who approves and the update and and get the data source updated with the new records, the enriched records, the ways you would like to have it. So this is something that is enabling you exactly to define to which level and which property would you want to have updated back to the data source and which not. And it's really easy to build and is really easy to be made. So without further ado, let's dive into our demo. Let's dive into our demo. CluedIn's Power Apps integration enables you to provide a complex and transparent processes around your MDM data. Let's observe our use case. Let's say Jim from Sales Services gets a request from a person that wants to get a higher credit limit. They enter the customer's basic information like name, for example, Sara Babic, birth date 12th of June 2008, birthplace Belgrade, Serbia, citizenship Serbian, and then at the end, obviously, an email. As a new client gets entered into a system, a new approval request is being received for John, Jim's supervisor, which allows this application to process further. John can take a look at the details if needed and go further to approve this application. Now the application has been forwarded to a new department, and then now the financial credit services will gonna be receiving a post in their own Teams channel, which requires their attention. They can see details filled up so far, but also notice, hey, our CluedIn MDM solution has picked up that this applicant is already a user from another consumer financial system from company they just recently acquired. CluedIn MDM here enables us to keep track of all the data we have across systems, especially those currently not connected to our day-to-day business. You can imagine what added value can 360 view of all of your data, customer data in this particular use case, can help optimize the application processes, not requiring, for example, a double work being done by customers if they have done already some pieces of their application process already before, and thereby improving customer experience. As a financial credit services team continues to provide their part of for the data regarding their communication with their customer, they can immediately see the list of all applicants waiting for their attention. And this experience of using familiar tools like Teams and simplified Power Apps forms without too much further visual noise makes business users' adoptions easier. Here, they have already pre-filled read-only fields they can use as a help to provide their part of information. As financial services have finished their part and pending financial credit services supervisor approval, data is getting synchronized to CluedIn and sent to credit risk department. Supervisors sees additional fields have been filled in and proceeds to approve it. As the data has now arrived to credit risk department, all information about the record has been stored in CluedIn, and CluedIn AI has automatically provided his take on risk profile of this applicant. As you can see further, you can write ChatGPT style description of how risk profile should be estimated, same as if you would be documenting it and let CluedIn AI provide you with the pre-filled results of a risk profile of this applicant, together with a full explanation why he decided for this option. The power of such profiling comes from integration of Microsoft OpenAI tool running safely in your own Azure tenant, powered by this 360 view data you have collected across all of your systems about your customer provided stored in CluedIn. In this case, we are using it as an advisor to help out credit risk's job easier. Now, when a credit risk department goes on and provides their input of data, he can have an advanced view on all of the data currently available about customer and base their decision based on this information. As they make their decision, a final approval is being done to send application approval back to the customer and update CluedIn with latest information. So how is this complex flow being built? As we open the Power Apps flow, you can see the whole process can be intuitively modified without any coding. As we had in our example multiple levels of approvals and application processing, aside of providing obvious added transparency, it can be edited and new steps added as your processes get more and more complex. As the data was coming into CluedIn, CluedIn's address has been provided. This address was already being available from our other system, this acquired system, and our Google Maps enricher has automatically picked it up and has changed and provided enriched or better validated version of the address. The street Srpskih Vladara in Belgrade has changed its name so many times in the past, and many people forgot what is their actual street name. Thanks to Google Maps, not just that we managed to get a proper name of the street, but we have also now a nicely formatted address along with a country which has originally not been available. This enables you also to use Power Apps to easily create a process flow for the way which data changes and how data changes should play back to original sources. So how does this flow look like? You set up a trigger where you monitor changes including via auto-synchronized Dataverse table and set up approval as soon as the data comes in. You can monitor changes like inserts, updates, or deletion in the whole table or only at a specific column. Once the approval has been given, you can proceed and update the row to a database. So now when we start a process, which can be automated, but in this case, I intentionally paused it so that we can see that what happens. We use Power Apps Flow to send this information back to the data source, pending approval from data stewards responsible for consumer finance system. This consumer finance system has already been connected to CluedIn as a database, and we already know exactly which ID is being used by this system so that we can update data sources whenever the changes like this one ever occur. So when he approves it, the data gets updated, which we can see by using this, in this case, third-party tool, PHP PG admin, so Postgres admin, where we can see the last query still having old address. But when we now refresh the query again, we can see the new data has been updated. So how is this CluedIn's Power Apps connection set up? It is as simple as just several fields which require you to be set up, for example, by the IT or whichever expert is in cloud infrastructure. And once you have it one time set up, and this environment in Power Apps setup connected to the CluedIn, you can also define exactly which data, not all of the data, but which data you want to be synchronized with Power Apps via Dataverse tables for further usage. And this would bring the demonstration of CluedIn and Power Apps integration to the end. We have seen both build-up of complex approval processes as well as bidirectional data sources updates using simple-to-use Power Apps forms. So thank you very much for listening up to the demo. And I hope that you find this demo very useful. And I will now pass back to Samuel, who will be leading our final session, the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Alex and Patrick, for that overview of Power Platform integration with CluedIn. Yeah, so just like Alex mentioned, for this last session, we want to run through some questions. So feel free to submit the questions that you have. We already have a couple that's already coming through within the chat, but feel free to add a few more that you have. But just before we even go into some of those questions, some of the key takeaways for myself for what Alex and Patrick were able to demonstrate is just how much CluedIn and the Microsoft Power Platform boost efficiencies and actually reduces cost by eliminating those repetitive and time-consuming data preparation tasks that we've seen time and time again being done within these organizations. And second, how data stewards can actually master data on the go, right? Eliminating the process of having to ask your IT team and go to different stakeholders within the business to be able to master your data, and then how that is being effectively and efficiently being done within the Microsoft Power Apps to build these CluedIn integrations, right? To be able to do that complex approval processes that Alex walked through, like something like that would take someone definitely a lot smarter than mine that's a little bit more efficient in coding, probably still take them a couple of days, hours, or weeks. And we can see that process being able to be done in a matter of minutes within the CluedIn and Power Apps integration. But then also not just that, but then the integration with that Azure OpenAI element as well, being able to just by simply typing free-form English text to be able to get that insight, the trustworthiness, the risk aspect of the data that are being populated back. It's really exciting to see. We know some of our customers are already utilizing this, but even from some of those, I believe, Patrick, you mentioned over 1,000 connectors in this digital toolbox. So the capabilities are almost endless, right? And I'm really excited to see and hear more about how customers will be able to use it more, not just with that enriches, but to be able to monitor these changes and how quick and easy it is to set up as well. So I'll just dive into one of the first questions that we have here. Is just, I think this is more for you, Patrick. Are there any plans to further augment the Power Platform, the Microsoft Power Platform with Azure OpenAI in 2023? And that might be for both of you, Alex and Patrick.
I'll just say, as there's connector to Azure OpenAI, but there is actually as part of this Power Platform toolbox, there is an AI builder tool inside of it, which allows you started a long time ago where you could, like read images and do kinds of stuff. And this Azure OpenAI, there's models that are being put into the Power Platform, and they also have templates there that you can use. So you can basically out of the box go into this AI builder as part of the Power Platform and see actually a bunch of AI tools that are also already available there. And Azure OpenAI model with templates in preview, I believe, from March. There are some already there. And then of course there's more coming. Microsoft has a huge interest in this and is really keen on delivering as much AI as possible to all the different tool sets, not just through Azure OpenAI. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yeah,
I would just quickly just add. Sorry, Sam. I just want to quickly add to that now, since I have a bit more experience playing with Power Up pages and everything. I get to see all of often this kind of suggestions and automatic builds of the pages, for example, and so on. That's all kind of done by AI in background, and it makes it so simple, so easy to build up the things, and makes even this work more efficient towards building it, such thing. And that's all kind of having a AI in the background.
Thank you, Alex. Next question, because we're getting a few now, so I'm just going to be rattling through them a little bit. Are programming skills needed to make connections happen? Patrick, I think I said that to you because you were talking about all these different connections that are
Okay, so the
available.
connectors that are there, there's 1,000 connectors right now. This number grows. We actually started with 250 a couple of years ago, so the number just kind of grows. There are wrapped APIs, so if you want to grab, you know, a third-party tool, whatever they offer you through their API is what's wrapped in that connector. All right, and so you can just basically plug and play those connectors into the different environments. So you probably need to go look up what the other tool offers through their API, because that's what you can do through the connector. And then if you want to make your own connector, which we see a lot of customers do, so for internal use, that requires a little bit more technical twist, but it's not, no coding is needed to do stuff like that. So, but if you are a developer, this makes your life it makes your life a lot easier. So
a lot easier, I can imagine. Is the Power Automate flow model a parallel approach to the Mesh API model, or is that going to be integrated with that model, or is CluedIn moving away from the Mesh API model? Alex, I think you'll be best for that question.
Yes, that's a really good question. So the point of the Mesh API, and which will still have, and it's not going away, it's only thing that I kind of myself believe is that there is certain limitations to it, where you whenever you need to add a more specialized, it has kind of a static workflow behind. It's very available. You can still use it, and it will not going to be going away, but with through open for Power Apps, you first have an additional amount of connectors that you can use to get the data back to the original sources, and the way how you want to do this. And this kind of a building workflow, building automated way how you want to do this is something that we want to leave open to the customer to choose which of the two options do they want to have. But both of them are available, one being maybe even more powerful than the other, but it's none of we are not moving away from Mesh API at all.
Okay, thank you for that. I would have answered it myself, but I thought it would be better from yours. So the next question is like a 3-in-1 question, and I believe it might be both for yourself, Patrick, and Alex. And I'll just read all 3 questions, and then you can answer accordingly. It says, after the workflow is triggered, is there an easy way to track where things are in the process and if it's stuck at some specific stage? 2, can the process be delegated or reassigned before/after the flow is triggered? And 3, can the approval be sent via email and actioned via hyperlink on an email as well, or notify users with an email? So the first one just about the triggered. After it's been triggered, can it be tracked at where it is within the process, and if it's been stuck within a specific stage?
go ahead, Alexander. You built that one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I was wondering. So in general, yes, you have a possibility. So to say, once you have this Power Apps flow defined, it's kind of a deployed. You can monitor exactly and see each single time when it's been run, and you can see on the point whenever there is something being currently running, it's having errors or something, and whenever you click on each of these runs, you're going to be able to see exactly where it stopped, or where there was an issue, or where it's running, where it's kind of delayed on. You can see, for example, and what was happening for me until I figure out how to use it is, while I get the approval process running, the Power Flow is waiting. So because it's such a task being done, and so you can just see running and waits until the actually task has been done, and you can exactly see at which step it is waiting for. So you can also then recheck the guy who actually is being not doing the approval. You can immediately then ping him and say, hey, there is a flow that is not being finished, where you need your attention. I think that I answered this first part of the question. I don't. You have to remind me of the other 2 parts.
Yeah, the second. Yeah, so the second is just about after the workflow has already been triggered. Can the approval process be delegated or reassigned to somebody else before or after the flow has been triggered?
So the point is that I don't think so that you can, once it's get already deployed, that you can change it. But what you can do instead is that you can put multiple people to receive the approval, and then you can say, hey, first one to respond is then will make the trigger the approval go further. That's often happening in the cases when, for example, someone who is dev written on a flow is on a vacation, and you need a backup, so to say, and then backup can be also entered into the system as well. And what was the third one again?
And the last is no, that's right. Can the approval process be sent via email? I know that's possible. And action via a hyperlink on the email as well as notify the user of that within the email. Okay.
Yes, that's
pretty straightforward.
Yes.
I mean, the Power Automate has connectors to Office like standard out of the box. There's actually comes with the license for the Power Apps is the whole Office integration. So you can actually provision that approval kind of wherever you like it. Email is most obvious, right? People use Teams, but if you're using a competitor's tool or something, you can also drop it in there. It's really web-based approval, if you want to say it that way. That's why they're asking hyperlink. When you click on it, it actually opens up the approval somewhere else, right? So, yeah.
I think this will be another question for yourself, Patrick. How does the Power Platform work with Microsoft Fabric?
No, it's a good pass there. I'm not sure out of the box. I have to go search the connectors for what's available in that, but I'm assuming you'll be able to grab. Fabric's quite new, right? So I'm going to leave a pass on that one, and then we'll go do a little search and come back.
Yeah, maybe that person can connect with you on LinkedIn or after the webinar as well. You can be able to certainly follow up. Next question, does CluedIn have native capabilities of such data curation and workflow management, or this is only available through Power Apps? Alex?
Data curation is, if you would consider data curation of documenting, for example, all the metadata that you use across and all the systems or business terms that you have across, this is something that we have available by all means, and you can use it within your UI. We have our own internal workflows which are used for approval process, which is not editable. This is something that we were thinking about how to do, and of course, this doesn't mean that we cannot improve our own flows further, but we considered that the Power Apps and why reinventing the wheel, so to say, and using such a powerful tool like Power Apps will make it so much simpler to make everything already available and directly used within CluedIn. So it is I would say a partially answered question in the sense of you can curate already including, and you have the workflows already included to some extent, but you could not create a new workflows and edit the existing ones inside of the CluedIn. So for these ones, we strongly recommend using Power Apps.
But isn't that part of the idea? Sorry, I was just going to say the idea that you put the tool in the hands of the person that uses it or needs to use it, right? So if data stewardship is, someone needs to be the approval on data stewardship, but the data is coming from all different sources, and you need someone sitting in the bank to actually add information on something. Why not give them the ability to see that data and edit that data right there where they are, instead of having to wait, for example? You make them very inefficient. Power Apps gives you the ability to embed these apps wherever the person is working. So, yeah.
Thanks, Patrick.
I think this is a follow-up on that question, actually, it just ties in quite well with it. Can Power Platform workflows be built directly in the CluedIn UI?
Actually, yes. Yes, I did not show it in the demo, and I'm sorry for that, but we have, for example, if you look, so the way how the CluedIn is integrated with the Power Apps is that every entity type, in case anyone they're more versed about CluedIn, knows every entity type, every entities that you have, also, let's say, records that you have, like customer, companies, and so on, are synced directly one-on-one to its Dataverse table. And this Dataverse table, along with its column definitions and so on, can be edited both on the Dataverse side as well as on a CluedIn side. And on top of that, we have a little kind of a tab on the entity type page where you can see the workflow, which can be used for that, can be then edited from within the CluedIn itself. An additional point to that, which I want to mention, is that CluedIn also offers within these Power Apps configurations that for each single data flow that data that's been synchronized to Dataverse, we create the stream that can be directly sent to the Dataverse. We create automatically the ingestion point that where you can get from the Dataverse table back to the CluedIn. We create also the, for example, the what's the name? Also workflows within the Power Apps where you can also start with, so to say, how we build automatically. For example, whenever something changes in Dataverse, there is approval process, and then you can extend on that approval process. So it's not really starting from scratch. You can already get something out of the box immediately built up for you. So yes, there is a tab where you can do it within CluedIn. I just elaborated way too much.
No, I really appreciate that, Alex. A little bit of a longer question. So can you clarify if the approval/approvals that are tracked in the Power Apps portion of the solution are communicated to CluedIn? Specifically, if we wanted to trigger an outbound event from CluedIn to our pub/sub service bus on the completed approval workflow, how would we leverage this model to achieve that?
I mean, one of the ways that now I'm currently thinking about it, one of the ways that can be done, of course, is that once the approval is there, you can also update specific property that you can attach to the record, for example, which could then enable you to have this kind of information also within CluedIn, and then send it further from CluedIn to Enterprise Service Bus or Event Hub in Azure or whatever you would use further. So, yeah. That would be, in my opinion, the best way. So you can connect all of the information and you can add the data or the columns to the Dataverse table, which would then address this and immediately be sent back and synchronized to the CluedIn as well.
Seems like you're getting all the questions here, Alex. How does different users/teams are connected with specific tasks within the workflow? Do we need to map CluedIn with organization AD?
I think, Patrick, you mentioned this already within a Power Apps part, is that Power Apps is connected and you can use all these Power Pages and everything set up so that each one, for example, each of these part of the workflows are being seen only by the, for example, part of the team or sub-specific team if you want different things. So this AD login can work both within CluedIn, as we also integrate with a single sign-on to the Azure AD, and as well as the Power Apps side. So practically whatever is being inherited from the both sides to the specific user, you can then get it available. So in my opinion, I don't see any, I mean, making it even better that it is also integrated in one single, so to say, ecosystem makes it much more simpler and seamless, the whole integration. Also in terms of a user perspective, user management perspective.
Yep. Anything to add on that, Patrick? Or just agreeing with Alex?
It sounds wonderful. I mean, it's like single sign-on. You have the security you're using through the Microsoft toolset that's inherent in the Power Apps, whether you're building them or also whether you're, you know, if you're sending emails to people or grabbing Teams or stuff like this. A person's rights basically dictate what they can and cannot do through your Office platform, through your Power platform, what it is. So you can basically manage all that in one place. So. And that's powerful.
Thank you. Very,
True.
very. How does CluedIn handle governance of semi-structured data like JSON documents? Alex, that'll be for you again.
Yeah, I'm here being grilled, I have to say. So,
Yeah,
how does
it
it?
well. It's fine. You're good.
No, no worries. So, I mean, I have to. So the point is that it's a question on how would you like this JSON unstructured data to be read into the CluedIn. This is actually the major question to begin with, because at the end of the day, if it's very unstructured and it starts with many various sub pieces of it, you can of course set up an adapter, a way to get the data into a property style form, like, okay, this is the information that is related to the customer, and this part of the information is related to the company that it works in, if it is part of JSON, for example. And this is all the stuff you need to kind of detach from one another in terms of to build, to put it into the right records. So I have to say right now out of the box, I'm not sure if we already have just something like this in a mapping available, but by all means, it is something that could be very easily built in the as a adapter, for example.
Thank you, Alex. As part of the workflow requirement, part of our workflow requirement is to write back update data to an external source system, which is not in our IT parameter. How do we use this orchestrated within CluedIn Power Automate workflow?
So it's an IT system which is outside of their IT infrastructure. So that means that it's some external tool, like an enrichment tool or something like this, which power data provider, I would call it like this. Which, so that is multiples of ways. So one is, of course, if there is already available connector, one of these 1,000 connectors that is in Power Apps, you can directly use it in a Power Apps and connect it from these external systems back to the points. You can, for example, my demo that I have shown, I have used database which I created in my own little server, which is external outside of the Azure ecosystem. So it's a kind of on-premise. So, and you can just simply provide these credentials inside of the Powerflow, and it will going to be securely be saved, this credential within the Microsoft, within the Microsoft Power Apps. And on the other side, also you can, if maybe that makes more sense, you can also use enrichers or create enrichers adapter, which would be then making this kind of external out of the your IT, because the point is also, if you have such a IT, this kind of a service outside of database or whatever, outside of your environment, that means most likely that is not your database, not your data or something like this, and maybe you would like to build an enricher, and you kind of connect it in a form of enricher to your tool. You can also connect it directly into the CluedIn without using, for example, the Azure Data Factory, which is, my opinion, the not really recommended approach, because what Azure Data Factory additionally provides you is the capability to have credentials nicely stored in a single place, and it's kind of centrally managed within the within one single place. So is there many ways how you can get the data in and connect it to CluedIn and connect via Power Apps back to the original system.
Just on that, there's a follow-up on that question actually, which is, can we enrich the data during this process, right? And meaning by that is enriching the data from multiple internal and external systems before it finally gets approved by the approval.
Yes. So the point is that with this data versus stable synchronization is what I really like about it, is the fact that you can create you can define exactly what triggers the flow. So you can define exactly, hey, if there is a final address happening after 3 enrichers being used to finally create a valid 100% sure valid address, this final address column, for example, in CluedIn inside, it will going to be a property or vocabulary key. will gonna be will gonna be changed or modified, then you can set a trigger only for this particular column to be. As soon as it gets modified, then your flow gets triggered, and as soon as this gets triggered, then you can set up your flow further to be done. So this kind of a way, this is what I also did, is that you can make this kind of a play in, because within the data in the CluedIn, and then afterwards just simply send out only the final version and make the changes only make the approval process based only on this final version of the record or the property that you would like to build. I hope I was clear enough in the sense of how it could be done.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Any comments, Patrick, to potentially a couple of the questions that's been asked? We've only got about a minute left of our session today. I was
thinking, if you see the flow, Power Automate flow as a hierarchy of steps, that you can basically, in the steps, you can grab data from one system, populate the data to another system, and then you can basically grab and pull data back and forth in as many steps as you like. It's very logical steps. You decide when the approval flow should trigger, and if you need to have approval flow in one step before you're allowed to go further to the enrichment of data somewhere else, you can just build that all into one Power Automate. You know, like I said, it's very logical. So if you can draw it up on a Visio or on a whiteboard or something like that, then you probably can create a flow around. And if you need the system to guess things for you, then that's where you would need to maybe, you know, use AI tools or something like that to make some intelligent guesses based on the semantics of what you have been using or whatever. So I mean, yeah. So if you can, you know, draw up a logical diagram of what you would like to do, you most likely create a flow for it. Dream away.
Yeah.
1,000 connectors.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's one of the amazing place to really end, right? Just, we would love to be able to get in touch with you guys, or you get in touch with us to really scope out some of those use cases that I'm sure a lot of you are already thinking about, the art of the possible, right? With these amazing connections, speeding up the value to insights like never before, right? To all the different possibilities, the processes that you guys already have within your organization, and trying to explore how can we utilize these Power Platform integration with CluedIn, right? So after this session, we're going to be sharing, there's going to be an email sent out with the recording for the people that were able to attend today. Thank you very much for joining today. And for the people that weren't able to make it, and feel free to be able to reach out. And I've just got on the screen as well there all our pictures that you can see there, but then also the QR code that you could scan to connect with us on LinkedIn. But also feel more than happy to reach out directly to myself, to the CluedIn team, to Patrick there at Microsoft, where we can help scope out those use cases more to be able to solve your data challenges, to be able to help you create these models, these connectors, whether that's within your ecosystem or outside of it, whatever that may look like. And we're more than happy to help and solve those use cases. But for today, thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it, and look forward to getting connected, hopefully via email and setting up some calls. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.